Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shop Talk. Shop Talk is a weekly show hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. And what we do is basically we have a roundtable discussion, except that this is obviously a rectangular screen. So with me tonight, because all of the checks cleared, they're all back. Directly to my right, we have Mala Mahadevan. Hello, Mala.
Hi, everybody.
Directly below me, we have Tom Norman.
Hello, everyone.
And directly indirect near me, we have Tracy Baggiano.
Hello, everyone.
It is Feast or Famine. Anders, you are correct. So tonight we have several things on the docket, but hi, John Fan. We are going to also say, hey, do you have a question about SQL Server or anything in that broad data platform space? Drop it in chat. This is your hour for us to ramble, rant, and sometimes have a correct answer, depending on how lucky you are. So my starting topic for tonight, because I wanted to throw the bombs early and save the latter half for stuff that will probably be a little less controversial. Reindexing. So maintenance routines in general. This is something we've held off on for a few weeks to let the passions die down slightly. But figured this is a pretty good topic. Mala figured it was a pretty good topic. I figured it was a good chance for a rant. So the question is, with maintenance routines, question number 1, is handling statistics enough? Question 1A, do we really need to rebuild or reorganize? Question 2, which is actually secretly question 1 as well. Are common strategies actually useful? So with all of this, we have several database administrators and me. And yet I still have an opinion. It's weird how that works. So I would say, will it be a rant or a ramble? That's a good question. We might actually do both. We might do both at once.
Well, the one thing we should notice is Kevin got a haircut. So
I did get a haircut. It was about time. It was a slight ordeal, but when I got it all trimmed off, I looked down and I was like, I can almost make a person out of this, at least a cousin it. So I was happy about that. So now on the topic of index maintenance. Who's got thoughts?
Are you asking us or are you asking the audience?
I'm asking everybody, including the audience. I think I know Anders' answer, but I'm asking everybody, what are your thoughts? Is index maintenance, what type of maintenance is necessary? Anything from nothing to everything? I don't know.
it depends. I like the answer. It depends. Typical
Anders
SQL answer.
Do you need to have indexes first? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That is not a need. Depends. You do. You do need indexes, but like it is with everything else, how fine-tuned your strategy is depends on many things, including how much time you have as a DBA and how effective you want the system to be that you are interested with.
And
I agree that common routines in place aren't really all that effective, but they're there for a reason. And if you are the DBA who has the luxury of time and really interested in fine-tuning things, that's not the way to go.
there is also the fact of one additional thing that you have to take into consideration, and that is the size of the table.
Right.
And that comes back to what you were saying, Mala, is how much time do you have to do statistics or rebuilding or reorganizing the table.
Yes.
I've got a luxury in my shop, and that is that we are mainly a U.S. company. So that basically means is that I've got from about 8 p.m. at night till about 6 a.m. in the morning to do anything and everything I need to do. So I can reindex, I can do whatever I need to do. So in my shop, and because the databases are not large in comparison to anybody else, I don't even have a database that's in the terabyte range. So in that particular case, we do all the maintenance type of stuff.
Anders is gunning for your job, Tom.
I like being the
You see a
DBA that
Norwegian
messes
man?
with the fill factors.
Sorry, Tracy, what was that?
You like what now, Tracy?
I like being the DBA that messes with the fill factors. I wrote a process that tracks your bad page splits and adjusts your fill factors based on the fact you have a lot of bad page splits and moves your fill factors down so you have less page splits. That way you don't need to defrag your indexes as much.
And I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that. Hopefully your indexes aren't goods to be causing you to.
And
to
I didn't
do
have
that.
it at the company where I was doing that at, so
Yeah.
didn't have that problem.
Yeah,
But it would only dip it down to 70% at the lowest as far as fill factor.
And you probably also have the luxury of space. You don't have to.
Yes,
you have a management that nickel and dimes you with regards to disk and such.
Yes, you and Kevin both have luxury to that because that's at Channel Advisor.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I wasn't referring to us. I wasn't referring to us. I was saying I've been at places that are not like that.
Well, it actually saved us space by doing it because most of the indexes got rebuilt to 100% and did not need to go down, and did not need to be re-indexed as much. So we actually saved money.
Fair enough.
So it depends on your database on whether that's going to happen or not and what indexes you have.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that it depends upon is how much data are you inserting into that table? You know, what kind of volume are you putting into that table? And will for example, if you're not putting much data into the table, then you could probably get away with a update statistics for a long time. But if you're inserting billions of rows, then you might want to, if you've got a billion rows, you're probably got a terabyte or petabyte database, and then you can't really re-index. You don't have the time for it. So.
Yeah. And I'm in a company right now where we do not automatically re-index anything. We do that by hand sometimes here and there to get performance or to get space back.
Yeah.
Yeah. We periodically do that on certain indexes, but we do not have it automatically do it.
Okay.
Well,
so there's
then the other thing is are you like almost every company I've ever been in, and that is, have you ever archived data off of your tables? Or are you basically still sitting with data that is 10 years old in the database that's not being used? And that just compounds issues in itself.
Yep.
Yeah, so far in chat, Neil mentioned installing Ola Hallengren's job to rebuild indexes. Anders mentions running Ola's scripts with really high thresholds. Tracy has mentioned that she's got her own system that she's worked out. And
that uses Ola's scripts in the background, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, all of my indexing and stuff and maintenance actually runs off of Ola scripts also. So it's like, I don't build anything. It's like, it's already, why in the community, if you've got some great scripts being maintained with and as the newer versions keep coming on and stuff, Ola does, and I don't know who else helps him, but he does a great job. And it's, if you're running maintenance plans or anything else, why? You've already got someone that's built a very nice engine and stuff.
Okay, so Tom says Ola as well. Mala?
I stand by whatever I said before. Ola or the Midnight DBAs, or before that there were a couple of other people who did it too. Any of those things, they pretty much work off the same principle as a generalized maintenance structure. I think back in the older days, one of the issues I had with Ola's scripts was the fill factor, that there was no way to adjust the fill factor, but I think he may have taken care of that now.
You can do that now.
And yeah. So other than that, I mean, that's the easiest way to get a maintenance routine up and going. The other one is what Tracy mentioned, is on a table by table basis when there is a need for it, which is also a good thing to do.
Okay.
The other part is even with OLA scripts, you need to, as a database professional, you need to go actually review and look at all the options that he gives you, because there's a lot of options. You can even put, index for this long, this time period, and stop after, that time period and stuff. So you really need to go look at all the options and see how you might tweak it.
There is
Min
also
and max page counts too. That way you can skip the big tables and skip the small tables and not waste resources there. That way you don't hit your terabyte table and you don't hit something that's really small.
What's his name? From Pedro on the Tiger team, that Microsoft has their own inbuilt similar routine too that's out on GitHub for anyone who needs it. I'm going to try and see if I can find it. But, it's the same principle that anyway re-indexing stuff works. Yeah.
I think it's called the adaptive index defrag on the Tiger team toolbox on GitHub.
Yeah.
So before I get to my opinion, we have a question from John Fan. Is page splitting the same as index fragmentation?
No.
No.
It is
so
not.
How do they differ?
I'll take it, Tracy, from you,
Okay.
unless you just want it. The page splitting is basically when you have a fill factor set on a table. If you have the fill factor set on the table, for example, that is 100%, and that page is at 100%, and you want to insert a row or a number of rows into that particular page. If it cannot insert those rows, what has to happen, and it's a performance hit, it's not a good thing that happens during the day, is it's going to take half of that page and move it to a new page so it can insert the rows, and it's going to cost you time. So you want to eliminate page splitting as much as possible. One example that can really hit you, unless you happen to be Thomas Grosser, is if you allow your clustered index, for example, to be on a GUID. That could get you if you don't have your fill factors set up properly. Did I explain it well?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
So now we're gonna get to my part. All right, here's where I say I don't necessarily disagree with Alatom and Tracy, but I am going to try to share my screen. Let's go with 3. Yep. I needed to make sure screen 3 was the correct one. Of all of the screens that I have, this is the most correct one. So we're gonna full screen this puppy. This is SQL Saturday Cleveland 2019. In particular, I want to focus on this 2-part session that Jeff Moden did on index maintenance. Now, this was an excellent session, and one of the things that I would recommend is go to the segment here, download the index maintenance scripts, because the slides also cover a lot of detail about index maintenance. And what this came about from is that the whole reason that we're talking about, hey, is index maintenance actually useful, is that there was a blog post from Brent Ozar a while ago that said, well, maybe it's not that useful. I just stopped doing it at all on some customers, and it seems to have worked all right. And so Jeff's question was, well, shoot, if that's the case, maybe I should stop doing it. And then after he stopped it for a little bit, he realized, no, there are cases when you do want to perform maintenance. It's not as simple as, nah, you can get away with never doing maintenance. But
yeah, that was kind of my issue with the whole sensationalistic Twitter argument on that too, is that it's not something you can just say, you know, forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, though in fairness, everything on Twitter is sensationalist, so it's got that going for it. So this is one of the things that Jeff put together, he and Ed Wagner put together, and this is a really good explanation of at least Jeff's thoughts on index maintenance. And I'll zoom in here so that we can see a little bit more clearly. But basically, he, like Tracy, sets things based on fill factor. And they'll set 100% fill factor for stuff that never changes. And says, never reorganize, that there's really no benefit ever to reorganizing. If you need to, rebuild. And here are the conditions under which you would rebuild. So for a lot of tables, if you have, for example, an identity integer column as the leading column of your clustered index or of any index, that's 99% fill factor. It's almost 100%, but he keeps it at 99 because there are user updates. So there's some possibility that somebody could go and update your identity value. And so you want to have a little bit of space there to prevent the page splitting that Tom talked about. And he goes down, and essentially what he does is that the last digit represents the type of index. So that way you can see it very quickly from fill factor that, you know, for example, there's no reason why this has to be 97 versus 98. It's just that this easily separates these types of indexes, and you can say, go find all the stuff that's 97% fill factor, and we're going to pick a percentage to perform a rebuild after a certain amount of logical fragmentation. And if you get down here, Tom mentioned unique identifiers or GUIDs or GUIDs. As a simple thing. So I want to hear from chat. How do you pronounce this word?
Pronounce what?
GUID.
All right, so Tom says GUID.
GUID.
GUID or GUID?
Good.
Okay.
I'd say it like Tom says it.
That's fair. That's fair. Anybody from chat want to take a hack at that? Is it GUID or GUID? Neil says it's pronounced GUID. Yeah. So Solomon actually got to the joke because I was going to say, how do you pronounce that? And the correct answer is SQUID.
Squid.
The SQUID, because, you know, if that's a GUID. SQUID. All right, anyhow, if you have a unique identifier, then he says, I'll end it with a 1 and make it something that's maybe like in the 70s. You know, like Tracy was talking about. Go down to the 70s. Or maybe 80%. Depending on how frequently you insert rows in here. So he's got a pattern.
Now the question boils down to is that for a non-clustered index or a clustered index?
Short answer is all indexes.
Okay.
So whether they be clustered or non-clustered.
And the thing of it is now with today's microservice systems and APIs and all that kind of stuff, I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely seeing more and more GUIDs in my database.
They come and go, yes. And in that case, that's where you just say, all right, lower the fill factor for leading unique identifier indexes. Now, you can still store everything using an identity column as the leading key and leading part of your clustered index, and just have the unique identifier be there as a primary key non-clustered index.
And that's exactly what we do. Is we, to keep our speed up, we basically made the primary key is the good, but the clustered index is actually back to the identity.
Yeah, and then you could also say put a unique constraint on the identity column and then use that in foreign key constraints, etc., so that you don't have to pass all these unique identifiers around inside the database. It essentially acts as an entry point. So in that case, for the non-clustered primary key unique identifier, that fill factor might be a 70. This isn't one single fill factor for all tables. It's per index, and it's not even per table, it's per index. So Anders asks, how would you handle SQL variant? Oh, that's easy. Drop column.
Exactly. What about, how would you handle varchar max? Drop column too?
No. There's reason
No
to
index.
have.
No
There are reasons
index.
to have that. Yeah, you can't really. You can index it.
Are you sure? Are you sure you can't index a varchar
You can,
max?
but I wouldn't.
Yeah, I was actually saying that you could.
What if in that varchar max field you store JSON?
So Solomon mentions that max types can only be in included columns, which in that case, your point's not going to be that strong. But you could have an invarchar 4000, and given that you can only have 1,700 or so bytes per row in an index, increased from 900 and some, which was prior to SQL Server 2012. You have the same issue where, invarchar max is bad, we're going to set it to 4,000, and then you have 3,000 characters of JSON. Well, in that case, if you have the index already there and you try to insert it, you're going to get an error because it can't write to that index because it's too big.
It's interesting. I was just researching this like about a week and a half ago, and because we're building some new tables that are going to house JSON.
Okay.
And I was like going, okay, what type of field, do I need? And of course it said varchar max. And then the other part was, it was showing you basically how to index individual pieces of that JSON into an index so you could search it. And I was like going, cool. So more to be determined as we get this project underway. So
yeah. So if you're trying to index individual pieces, this isn't like XML where you had secondary XML indexes. JSON is just string data. So you could split the JSON, store different elements of it as columns, as attributes on your table, and index those. There may be a way, I'm not really sure, but there may be a way to, say, try to generate a computed column from the JSON. This sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, it was actually showing a varchar max, and you do a JSON index on it. So I'll have to find that link. Okay. So
yeah,
because I was shocked myself, because I was like, going, just store it in separate fields, Yeah. And they go, well, we don't know what it's going to be.
Well, figure out what it's going to be and then store it in there.
Yeah.
This is a data model. This is not an application. Applications get to be really flexible. Data models don't get to be really flexible. You actually have to think before you have a data model. You can't think, you don't get a data model. Go store the data in MongoDB where you don't care about it.
Well, there are some unthinking data models. Think SharePoint.
Yeah. If you work for Microsoft, stop making databases. You're not good at it.
And Kevin, what you were saying, I was just looking back at the article, and it says index JSON properties by using computed columns.
Okay, yeah, computed columns. That makes sense in the sense that you can do it. I don't think it makes sense in the sense that I don't think you should do it. Solomon does mention that you could always convert the JSON to XML and then index the XML.
Yeah, I
I'm just
don't
gonna
know.
leave that right there. Split the data. It's simpler to work with. Exactly, Raymond. You have the information. You're assuming that there's going to be a structure. I can understand, hey, we have absolutely no structure. We just have random stuff coming in. And in that case, you get a column. But we're not going to index that column. We're not going to have anything on that column. That's not structured. You told me that. If you have a structure, then we define a structure. We set up attributes. We set up a data model.
Oh, come on. Let them have their JSON, man.
They can have JSON. Hey, I'll put it this way. I even store, I actually store some data in JSON. That's the roll-up of report data so that I can have more of it per row so that my queries actually are a lot faster. But I never search within that JSON. I have a pointer that says, this is the row that I need, and go send all that JSON to the application that can handle it. The database doesn't do any work at that point. At that point, it's an atomic blob is what it is. Because first normal form. The thing in here is atomic. You start having me select a bunch of like substrings and JSON value sets in order to get the data out. That says you should have done that on the way in.
Well, and a good point to really cripple you if you're storing JSON, and if that field happens to be encrypted, you cannot go select elements away from it. You basically are, you've got to look at the whole thing. You can't go look at individual elements.
Yep. And Solomon makes the really good point that if you are storing JSON, you really want it to be in varchar max instead of varchar max, because JSON can easily send Unicode data. So that's a really good point. That's something I would highly recommend. At this point, I would probably just automatically say in varchar for pretty much any string column.
No, Kevin, no.
You don't think so?
No, sir. Double your
In
data.
varchar for any string column? Why,
Yeah.
Kevin? Why?
So
you're gonna double your disk space, dude.
Right,
For columns,
right.
you don't
I
need
mean,
to
it
double.
has its place. It has its place, but why would you say for any? That seems weird.
as a default. So Solomon says no, Anders says no. I'm getting a lot of no's. So let me lay out my reasoning. Am I trolling
go
you?
ahead.
This is only about 20% troll. This is actually about 80% realistic. So, all right. Row level and page level compression, for the most part, add very little CPU, especially row level. Row level compression basically turns disk space used from invarchar to varchar from 2 bytes to 1 byte if you don't have any Unicode data in there. So I'm not really losing anything. I get compression can't do max types. Okay, but if you have max types, I'd still want to have those be in varchar, because if I have max types, I'm generally going to have long sets of string data, descriptive data, and I want to be able to have that be internationalized. I want to have people from, say, non-English speaking countries be able to use my database. And even if English, even if it's a US company, still going to have some people putting stuff in other languages. I'd rather be able to handle that easily. And then I'll use compression on everything else.
You can do all the languages except your double byte language set, Japanese and Chinese and, and Arab languages and stuff. But, if you're just putting an accent in there for Spanish or French or something like that, you don't need a double character set.
Yeah, but now you're saying, hey, here's what, 2.5 billion people who aren't going to be able to use your system. And when I'm designing it, it's as easy as like putting one letter in there. It's not really a huge difference.
It's a cost difference. It's a space difference. It's costing you
compression.
money.
Not with compression, because I'm going to compress most of those indexes anyhow.
What if it's a field that's not an index, it doesn't have an index on it?
I'm still going to have a clustered index, and my clustered index is still going to be compressed. Not all data has characters outside of ASCII. Yeah, and if your data doesn't have anything outside of ASCII, again, row level compression is going to say, I've got it down to the same size as your varchar, except now when somebody does throw in Chinese characters, I can handle it without things breaking.
I never put in, I crucify my developers for using in varchar. I crucify them. I'm not going to get that stuff out of my database unless we are going to put in the double byte character set. And we can do it on an individual field basis. That's the other thing, is you can go turn around and do it on an individual field basis. So
I understand that.
I'm a U.S. company. My borders are 50 states. That's it.
You made a point though with the compression thing, Kevin. I don't think I would have thought about that at all.
No, I did. I agree with him. I did
Yeah,
not.
it's really out of the box, and it's worth considering to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I went from 90% of people said no to 90% of people said no. So I consider that a win.
Yeah. I would agree. You'd have to, if compression's going to do that for you, then. But what if you do page compression instead of row compression?
Oh, I love page compression.
But will it also do the same thing for you on your varchar fields?
Yeah, because page compression is going to incorporate row compression.
Okay.
So it is a superset of the activities that row compression does. So I want all devs to do code first, which is Unicode unless told otherwise. Yeah, I do want to be able to handle Unicode automatically. I mean, this isn't the 1970s. I don't have to worry about I've only got 1 megabyte of space available. If I'm seriously at a point where the difference between running out of space and not running out of space is putting an in before my varchars, I got problems.
It's cost. It's additional overhead. It's additional cost.
I don't know. We'll take this.
ROI, man, ROI.
I am all about burning money. It's not my money. It's somebody else's. You haven't dealt with 140. Nope. Sorry, that was 14 terabyte databases in Azure yet, have you? No. As much as I joked about burning money, a 14 terabyte database in Azure definitely burns money. So, let's talk about something else. That's my segue. I'm done getting beat up on. Let's just base 64 and code everything, then everything fits into varchar. Solomon, I can still ban you. You know that, right? You made Tracy sign off. Look at what you did. But no, seriously, next question here. I did want to move to a much lighter topic. Oh no, Tracy really did leave. She'll be back, hopefully. I'm willing to take that risk. So
I don't think she left on your count. I think she probably had her cat asking for food or something.
That's possible.
Yeah.
But for stream canon purposes, she left because Solomon mentioned base 64 for everything.
Sure.
That's what we're going with. So next topic is weird job opportunity emails. I have 2 examples that I wanted to hear. Weird job opportunities you've gotten. Obviously not the here's the actual job, but those emails that you get from recruiters. So for example, technologies that haven't been on your resume in a decade. I sometimes still get emails saying, hey, this job working as a QA tester is a great fit for you. And I'm like, do you have a copy of my resume that's 15 years old, back when I did QA work? That sounds great. Also, the pay is a ridiculously small amount because, of course, if they're going to have 15-year-old copies of the resume, I'm still making what I made back in 2005. Makes sense.
Well, you also have people that will send you, recruiters will send you information, and you're like going, you've done big data and you've done a lot of other things, and it's like, I've never touched those technologies, and they're not even on my resume.
Right. That's almost the opposite of what I get. Usually I'll get things like, you're this so the other thing, I haven't gotten many jobs about it lately, although now that I'm going to say it out loud, I'm sure they'll come streaming back in. You would look great in this position as a Cold Fusion developer. And my initial thought is, there are still companies using Cold Fusion? They haven't gone bankrupt yet? Yes, I did Cold Fusion for about 1 year back in college. All right, I needed the money.
We actually acquired a company about 3 years ago that was running their website on Cold Fusion on top of a SQL Server database of all things. And of course, we've already converted all the data out of that thing, but yeah,
Right.
they were on Cold Fusion 3 years ago.
I don't know. I don't get it. Solomon mentioned WebSphere administrator. That's another blast from the past. I guess sometimes when you find these old technologies, you still have it on that ancient resume that somehow is floating around someplace. And these are technologies that nobody's interested in getting into. Recruiters are just going to try to find anybody with that keyword. So yeah,
Right.
you would be wonderful as this Ada developer. I took one class. Ada was 2 weeks of it. How did you know? Anders gets stuff in RPG. And frankly, after tonight's discussions, I think you should take one of those jobs, Anders, just for the trolling. I would love to hear the stories. Raymond gets Cold Fusion, PFS file, Btrieve Builder. I don't even know what that is.
After 4.5 years of working for the company I currently work for, 4.5 to 5 years, one of the developers that interviewed me when I first started there said, "Hey, I've got your resume on my desk from 5 years ago." So I was like going, "What?" So yeah.
How are you liking it at your old job? Oh, I'm liking it a lot better now that I'm gone.
Yeah.
Bala mentioned Excel, data analysis with Excel. Just can't get away from Excel.
Oh man.
I don't consider that an insult though, because I'm a big fan of Excel. I don't respond. I don't want a job doing 100% Excel. That's for certain. But I can see where that comes from. I've written some blog posts on data analysis with Excel and such, and so they somehow find the connection there.
Yeah, that does make sense.
How many people are still importing data into Excel?
Oh, a lot of people. So Excel is the most popular business tool.
No, I mean, let me rephrase that. Importing data into SQL Server from Excel.
A lot.
A lot of people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or exporting data out of SQL and throwing it on in Excel. I've done that a few times at my job because customers wanted something. Yeah.
I guarantee there are hundreds of thousands to millions of SSIS packages, rickety packages that break every few months, that are still loading Excel data into SQL Server.
Well, something I found that SQL Server, importing data from Excel into the database, I used to just cringe about having to import that, because for whatever reason, I never did learn till about maybe 9 months to a year ago about the SQL Server import and export wizard.
Okay.
And that error that you get when you do it just straight from SSMS, it comes up with a you're missing this access library that you can't
Yeah,
insert the data,
redistributable.
you know, and I'm like going, and I finally found the SQL Server import and export wizard and never seen that error message again. So
They've added that one option for flat file import too, which is really good. I really love that.
what's that?
That thing has gone through a lot of bugs. It was pretty buggy when it came out.
True.
So it doesn't always do what you want it to do, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
SQL Server flat file
Yeah.
importer.
Luckily, I haven't run into any errors with it so far. So when I've had to use it.
The biggest issue you run into with Excel is that the zero truncation.
Oh
If
yeah,
if it's some kind of an ID with trailing zeros, it's not a zero.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
a number. And if you're not careful with that, that can land you in trouble. Yeah.
True,
Yeah,
true.
that's that one that I always have to go back in to open up the Excel spreadsheet and change the data type so that it'll come over as a real text instead of, you know, it trying to convert itself.
Yep. And Raymond mentions one of the more common problems, merged cells, especially if you're dealing with
Yes,
integration
hidden and merged cells. Yes.
Yeah.
Calculation results can be imported a little weird. Date handling between Excel and SQL Server is not what you would expect. So yeah, it's Power Pivot is definitely a better choice. John Fan is right. Power Query. So bringing over that data, loading up using Power Query into a Power BI model, if that's the way you're going, yeah, I would certainly go that route if you can. Handling nulls, yep, Anders is right.
All I'm trying to do is get the data from out of the spreadsheet into the database so it can be worked with.
Right. And when it's really easy, so sometimes I will even do the really poor man's data import, which is you have that Excel spreadsheet, and I just write insert statements as a formula for each row, just drag it all the way down, run those insert statements. I have done that on occasion for one-off. I just need to get some data in the loads.
Yeah.
Not fun when someone sends you a text file in Epsidic. It is never fun. It is never fun.
Funny story, when that thing was introduced, I think it was 2008, it had a bug that would try to export data into a view. So we would sit and watch that, but there wasn't a way to uncheck it, and that button would spin and tell you that you're doing something wrong because it was trying to put something into a view.
So the other job I wanted to talk about, and also definitely interested to hear weird resume bits from other people as well. We're still getting some, so I'm glad to see those. I have data warehousing on my resume. Twice. This actually hasn't just been once. Twice, I've gotten inquiries about being a shift manager at a warehouse.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes, I know warehousing. I can do this. Oh, you want to pay me about a sixth of what I currently make? Yeah, talk to my agent. So those were a couple of the weirder jobs that I've seen recruiters try to hit me up with. Any other interesting recruiter stories we've got here? That bugs me on Glassdoor. Yeah, they have how much I make. Oh yeah, where Glassdoor sends email. It looks like you would be a great fit for Anderson Widget Company for this job, making $12 per hour. I currently make $13 per hour. I don't want your $12 an hour job. Thank you very much.
Come on, you don't want to go down into a much better company with maybe they got better benefits.
Well, okay, so as far as that goes, I actually do price benefits. I have a spreadsheet because I'm that guy. When I was last time I was looking for a job, this has been a long time ago, I put together a spreadsheet with all the different companies I was looking at and the amounts that they were willing to offer and the list of all the amenities. And there's a line item, kid you not, the ability to wear shorts at work. worth $12,000 per year to me. I'm willing
Oh
to
my
take
word!
a
Wow.
$12,000 pay cut to work at a place where I can wear shorts.
Oh my, that's quite a stretch. Now, if you
Yes.
said that about open office, which I know you hate, I share that hate, and I'm willing to take a pay cut for that.
I would
But
take a
I
pay
don't know
cut for an
about
open
clothing.
office, or to get rid of an open office. I would take a pay cut to burn an open office to the ground. So position as an architect building bridges. See, Raymond, you get the nice ones. I just got shift manager at a warehouse. No kilt equals $50,000 pay raise. I'd rather pay you the extra money, Anders. Neil mentions, I love it when I'm sent a job with a salary of X. I send it back asking if this is a monthly amount.
Oh man.
Can run queries on production. So Mala, is that worth more money to you or less money to you?
I don't know. I guess it depends on the situation. I certainly wouldn't sell it to anyone.
We let you run all the crap in production that you want. So let's transition here over to Mala's book corner. What have you got for us this week?
So I have two books, like I always do. The first one ties in directly with a little bit with what we've been talking. It is Data Analysis Using SQL and Excel by Gordon Linoff. This is an older book. I don't know if he has a newer version yet. The one I have is at least 6 or 7 years old, and it was old when I bought it, so it should be pretty old by now. This is an excellent book for those people trying to get an introduction into the world of data analysis and even data science. He goes into data mining methods in a lot of detail. He has ways of doing it using SQL. Remember, the SQL he's talking about here is the generic SQL. It's not specific to SQL Server, so there may be some adjustment needed there to make it work on SQL Server. But he does show you examples of how you can get into, really understand your data and some basic level statistics and probability and regression and all that stuff. And the last chapter he has is real gold. That is different functions across multiple relational platforms. And the platforms he has, I know he has SQL Server, he has Excel, he has Oracle, and Excel is not a relational platform, but he explains how you do the same function across. He has MySQL, SAS, and one more, Microsoft, that is SQL Server. Yeah. So this is really, really useful for those people who want to work across platforms to understand how different types of functions work. So I think this is a very valuable book, and there is a website he had too, which wasn't totally up to date, but still had all the queries and everything he refers to in the book on that, and the queries referenced to in the book. So worth it if you want to get an intro to data analysis. The next book I have is T-SQL Windowing Functions by my dear friend Kathy Kellenberger. I have the first version, and she also has a second version out now, which I haven't bought yet, but I have this one. And this is particularly relevant to get a clear idea of what windowing functions can do at a beginner level. And there's a reason I bought this book. I worked with windowing functions a while, and when I interviewed for Channel Advisor, Kevin had one of his questions was on windowing functions, which I could not answer. And the reason I could not answer was because I didn't know how to explain windowing functions in a lot of detail. I knew how to write code with them. I didn't know how to explain them. So that is where I think Kathy's book is very useful. Kathy is the editor of Simple Talk, and I'm sure everybody has used at least one or two articles from Simple Talk. It's an excellent website, excellent collection of very quality material. And she's behind most of that writing. And she's extremely good with explaining concepts in a very clear, simple ways. So Itzig Ben-Gan has his book on windowing functions too, which is very advanced and very good. But the reason I specifically went for Kathy's book is because I wanted to learn how to explain them in a simple way if I was faced with a question like what Kevin asked me. So if you want that kind of explanation and definition on windowing functions, then her book is the way to go. Those are my 2 books for this week.
So my question to you, Mala, is once you get done with these books, do you have, how big and how massive is your library?
It depends. I keep books that I think are worth referring back to. These 2 books definitely are, and those that are not worth it, I just give away. I put it in a bag and give it to the library. I'm guessing it goes from the library to trash because libraries don't keep technical books. But and I have quite a lot of books on my Kindle. Not all of them are hard copies, but I started specifically on hard copies after this whole isolation and everything started, because I got tired of looking at the blue screen a little too much. So some of the books I've been showing on the show are hard copies, but I have quite a number of them on Kindle, which I just delete after I read them. And I get rid of the ones that are worth storing and referencing back to. Those are books by masters like Itzik Ben-Gan, or books on architecture, and sometimes SQL tips and tricks that you don't get anywhere else. And this kind of data analysis kind of books, which I use occasionally, but not very often.
Cool.
Makes sense. So I've dropped links into chat for those books.
So I have one more little thing to say. This afternoon, I saw something interesting on Twitter. There is Safari Books is doing a community book project that is 97 things every data engineer should know. And they are looking for contributions from literally anybody on a wide range of topics. That's building pipelines, batch and stream processing, data privacy, data security, data governance, and lineage, anything. So if you have something to say and you can write it well, you'll probably make it into the book and have your name out as a contributor. And I'm going to post this link here for Kevin to share with all of you. This might be something worth doing if people have the time and energy for it.
Anders is going to have a chapter on cursors. So, because it says data engineer and not SQL Server database developer, that could be legit. You could have a database platform like Oracle where cursors are normal and not weird.
Right.
Raymond mentions, for a nice collection of tips and tricks, the MVP SQL Deep Dives, volumes 1 and 2 are pretty neat. That they are. I've got volume 2 behind me. Volume 1 I have as an ebook. So yeah, those were really good. So when I will include the link to the 97 things that a data engineer should know in the show notes, shoptalk.tripass.org. Last thing I wanted to talk about tonight. I've got one more thing on the agenda. Tips for new graduates trying to find jobs. So I had somebody reach out to me asking, actually for his son, who is a brand new graduate, statistics and economics, interested in getting into data science. How do you get that first job? And my normal advice would be, especially in this area, the Triangle area of North Carolina, my normal advice would be, well, go to Research Triangle Analysts, that user group, go to TriPass, this user group, and meet people and look for who's trying to look for jobs. Who's got jobs available. Well, because everybody's locked down right now, we're not really meeting in person, and that sort of friendly conversation, getting to know people, is a lot harder to do when you're doing strictly online meetings. So my major piece of advice is already kind of gone right now. So I was curious what people had in mind. If you have somebody that you know who's interested in getting that first job, whether that be as a data scientist or a database administrator or even a developer or anything in this field, what advice would you have?
Well, Kevin, I know that for my company, we've over the past couple of years have actually hired interns, from college and stuff, so if you have already graduated, of course, that might be out the door, but the other thing is, especially if you're into data, don't look at it as beneath you to even possibly taking a reporting type of job, to write reports for somebody and to learn more and stuff like that. But I've got a gentleman right now that I am training up from MySQL and giving him all the tips and bits about SQL Server. So sometimes it's just being in the right place at the right time. And how do you get to the right place at the right time? I don't know. You just got to be. It's that accidental DBA. You stand too close to the database, and then all of a sudden they suck you in.
Right. Now, the other tricky part is that it seems like right now there, or at least when I wrote down these notes, which was a little while ago, there are a lot of places that aren't hiring right now. So it's a little difficult. I mean, it's especially difficult right at this moment because not only do you lose one of the major tools available to you, and that is meeting people in person, becoming a person rather than a random string of characters on the internet, but also, the number of positions, especially entry-level positions, where companies say, you know what, we can hold off on hiring right now. So it seems like it's a double whammy.
So pragmatic works back in, at least my information on this is a little old, and I can message one of them to ask if they're still doing it. They used to have a free program where they would train young people out of college on some basic data stuff and help them find like internship kind of roles. I can write them and find out if they're still doing it, but they used to do that back then. And you had to go through some interviews and such to qualify because the whole process is free and it's on their time and their money. But they used to do something like that before.
Okay.
The other part is that the organization which we're that kind of over the TriPass, pass.org has areas for people looking for work and people that are looking for workers. So you might want to put your information up there, and then hang out in some of these areas. So maybe, Kevin, we want to, in the future, say, hey, has anybody got any job openings that they're looking for people? Because maybe there are. We've definitely brought on some contractors for some work that we were doing. So we're continuing to press forward. And, if you can even sneak in as a contractor somewhere, maybe that's worth your while too.
Also, I would recommend, even if I know many people don't like social media, but Twitter is a good way to find jobs. Okay, and there is a hashtag called SQL jobs, #SQL jobs, which quite a number of people post to. And if you use that hashtag, you can also get noticed by a lot of prominent people in the community who will help you, retweet your message and try to find you the right contacts. I know my job happened via Twitter. That's why I'm a big proponent of advertising job searches there. And I know for a few other people too that it works. But you have to follow the right people, use the right hashtags, and say what your skills are and what you're looking for.
Okay. So Raymond mentions aligning interests with data work. Like started with mapping pre-Esri and did route optimization planning. But that's actually that's pretty interesting. Mike asks, well, don't most conference systems have rooms? And the short answer is that yes, a lot of them do, but it's still not really the same experience. It's a lot different.
No, it's not.
Because you're now on camera with people. Everybody's looking at you. Even when they're not looking at you, they're looking at you because all the faces are pointed right at you. And that makes it a lot more difficult. It's also more difficult just to sit down next to a person and talk about something, because in one of those rooms, you still only have one conversation happening at a time, or else there's crosstalk. So it's a little tricky. Done a coding contest. Development, yeah, those types of contests can be interesting if you're good at it already. It could be a way to try to work yourself into a job. That's true. That is a good idea. Solomon mentioned doing tech support. Good experience over a wide range of stuff. I would agree. I also started out doing tech support, and it's worth it. I think it's a really nice first job. Let's see. We're now getting into other cases. The scam for employers, coding contest scam for employers. Okay, see, I don't know. There are certain types of competitions. I didn't mean something like, why don't you take 45 people, have them all do development work for you for free for a little while? But if you think about something, we've had competitions in the Triangle area, even hackathons. You know, those sorts of things can lead to job opportunities. But the issue is, so many of these scenarios really work on the happy coincidence of two people being in a room together at a time. And when it's all virtual, it's more difficult.
Yes, absolutely agree there.
Yeah. Open source projects and volunteering. Possibly. It wouldn't hurt. I'll put it that way. Can lead to jobs. Open source projects can lead to jobs. Of course, it can also lead to mega companies stealing your code and releasing it as their own code. Not that we know of any gigantic corporation that would do that. Microsoft. Just dropping that in there, Wingit. So Solomon mentions the route of doing tech support, not necessarily the first thing you think of, and that's true. It's not necessarily an intention, but it's a nice way to get into this industry, especially when you were getting started. Tech support was absolutely a way for younger people to get into the field, and it may still be to an extent. QA is a way that you could get in. I've seen quite a few people go from QA into the roles that they wanted. So starting out QA and then moving up into development. So yeah, there are still entry-level jobs in the space. That's interesting. Thanks for the feedback, everybody. And with that, we are going to wrap up tonight's episode of Shop Talk. I'm all ranted out. I've done plenty of ranting tonight. So, for Tracy, who bailed on us because couldn't take the realness of my takes, for Tom, for Mala, I want to say thank you all. Have a wonderful night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.